This presentation called Webquests and Problem-Based Learning is for the class Technology and Problem-Based Learning at Lipscomb EG 5633. What is problem-based learning? My first definition is from the IASHE, or the All Ireland Society for Higher Education. The author was Terry Barrett, and he is quoting Howard Barrows, who's known for his medical innovation using problem-based learning at the Macaster Medical University in Ontario, Canada. His definition says problem-based learning is the learning that results from the process of working towards the understanding of a resolution of a problem. Terry Barrett also wrote another book, a chapter of a book, and the chapter was called Understanding Problem-Based Learning. For teachers, I would say this is a great resource if you're trying to use problem-based learning in your classroom, and I'll have a link to it at the end of the presentation. The second definition I have here comes from the Illinois Mathematics and Science Academy, their PBL network. PBL is what I will be calling problem-based learning in this presentation. The definition says, problem-based learning is focused experiential learning organized around the investigation and resolution of messy real-world problems. And this comes from their handbook on their website, which I also think is a great resource for teachers who want to use problem-based learning for two reasons. Their handbook outlines a lot of the scientifically based research that supports PBL, and at the end of their handbook there's all kinds of examples of projects or problem-based learning activities, projects you could use with specifics for each grade level all the way from pre-K to adult. A little bit of the history of problem-based learning. I talked about Howard Barrows earlier. Howard was a educator in the medical field at McMaster University in Ontario, Canada, and he is sometimes given credit for beginning the problem-based learning in education. And then from there it spread to a lot of other fields, law, architecture, and sciences, and eventually made its way into all higher learning, high schools and elementary schools. When you do problem-based learning in K-12 schools, it's going to and possibly in colleges too, it's going to take a shift in the way we think, and that shift will go from a teaching paradigm to more of a learning paradigm. So what does problem-based learning look like? It can look like so many things. It has many formats, but one thing they all have is that when you do problem-based learning, you present a problem and then the students take it from there. That problem could be simple, could involve technology or not, and I'm going to concentrate on the ones that do use technology in this presentation, because I think that's another part of the paradigm shift that we're now in. Okay, here's a long list of other possible formats for problem-based learning. One that I highlighted is cartoons. It's because I put a link to a website called Toondoo. Many teachers are using these in their Webquests, or on a wiki page where the students would connect to the link to this website and create a cartoon that might include text. And there are so many of these formats that can be embedded into your website or wiki page. Another one is called Voki, where you have a little avatar where you can record your voice. The teacher can record the voice, or the students, and then you pick an avatar who then uses the recorded voice over the cartoon figure, the animation, and you can have it. The students can actually listen to your lesson as told by a shark, monster, monkey, or any other character they have, and that can make it real fun. I am going to try to link to it right now and see if you can see the animation I made. When you go online and you start to research for yourself about problem-based learning, a lot of people will call problem-based learning PBL. The slight problem with that is that there's another type of learning called project-based learning, and it's also abbreviated PBL. And that's not always a problem, because often they're the same. They're the same type of learning. A problem-based learning project could be would focus on inquiry or open-ended question, a problem, and a project-based learning project often does too. So often they're interchangeable, but there you will find project-based learning online, links to them, that they're not based on a question or inquiry, and they're just the task that the students complete. So when you are doing your own research, be careful, don't get confused. Do a little research on both. You might find a lot of good stuff on project-based learning sites, but just know that not all project-based learning is also problem-based learning. Some other terms that you'll come across when you're doing your research, searching for sites that you might find PBL activities projects on. These four terms: project-based learning, we talked about; inquiry-based learning, which is also called open learning; constructivism; and learner-centered instruction. And in some ways they're all closely related, or often mean the same thing. Project-based learning we discussed. Inquiry-based learning means the learning is based on the question, but often inquiry-based learning can sometimes mean that whatever the student is interested in might lead the instruction, whereas in problem-based learning the instruction is the problem is created by the teacher, who has the objectives and standards in mind beforehand, and the questions lead the students to learning. And problem-based learning is also a learning-centered type of instruction, which is based on the theories of constructivism, using real-world situations and having students in small groups interacting with each other and reflecting. So these types, all these types of learning cater to the needs of the student, but they're not all exactly the same. So when you are looking through these sites and you see the different terms, do a little extra research, make sure you're getting what you want. Okay, so if you have found yourself you've done your research and you found yourself some websites and picked a project you wanted to use, these would be some 6 basic steps that you would go through, or the students would go through, as a problem-based learning project. Step 1: the students are presented with a problem. This could be made by you, or it could be created by another teacher. And if you have your students using problem-based learning that is found online through a link, a wiki page, or whatever, Sometimes this is sometimes referred to as a tutorial. So you present the problem, or you present a tutorial, which they will find on their own. And if you have students who are advanced enough using technology, they might even do these tutorials after school or outside of school. Step 2, the students discuss the problem in a small group. They brainstorm ideas and they come up with a plan of action to work on the problem. Step 3, they engage in independent study. Step 4 is when they all come back to the problem or come back to the tutorial, and then they present and discuss the solution to the problem, and then the class reviews it. And the last couple steps, the discussion, the presentation, the discussion, and the review are real important steps. Don't miss them. Number 1, that's where you get your assessment from, and the assessment, which is usually based on a rubric, is sometimes also found on a website. We'll discuss that later when we talk about Webquests. Okay, so we know what problem-based learning looks like, but why do you want to use problem-based learning? Well, problem-based learning, through the research, has shown that it is a student-centered learning, so the emphasis is on the learning rather than the teaching. Problem-based learning increases motivation and engages the students. We all know how important that is. It has real-world relevance. It promotes higher level thinking and increases metacognition. So if you decide to use the technology available to you and you want to do problem-based learning in your classroom, one of the most popular types that I've found that you can easily get to are called Webquests, and the main 2 sites that I know of are webquest.org and questgarden.com. I think they're both developed by the same people. Lately, Webquest's site has been down, and they just direct you to QuestGarden anyway. So I've chosen 2 examples from the QuestGarden website. One's for the lower grades, so you can see that it can easily be done even with pre-K kids and kindergarten, and another one from middle school or high school. What is a Webquest? It's an inquiry-oriented lesson format in which most or all of the information that the learner works with comes from the web. And their Webquests have a specific format. There's always these 5 parts: the introduction, the task, the process, the evaluation section, which is usually a rubric, and a conclusion. And some of those match alongside the other steps that I mentioned earlier, or can be connected to them. The introduction tells the name, the project. The tasks is the specific steps they would take. The process often involves the part where they would watch videos online or link to sites and research sites so they can learn about adding to their knowledge about the topic before they work through the problem. The evaluation usually just shows a rubric of how they're going to be graded, and the conclusion is how they turn in their project, usually involving presentation to the class. One other site that I really like is called PBL Online Resource, and they have a giant video library of projects created by teachers that you can share and then use yourself and link to. They also have an educational portion of their website that tells teachers how to plan their own design for a project, and you might even be able to collaborate with students from another country around the world that are doing problem-based learning. And also, last website you might want to check is called the Khan Academy, and he's a big proponent of flipping the class